I guess I should probably go live, huh? Heavy, what's up? What's up? It should be fun. I'll just say that it should be fun. Yeah. Good guy, what's up, man? Poland, what's up? Welcome, welcome. Yeah. Oh god. Yeah, slightly funny. Yeah, we'll give it we will allow a little bit of time before we start. What am I looking for? I think so. There we go. Yeah. It says based. Fob, what's up, man? Have you heard we won against Echo today again in a row? Really? No, I didn't. You know, people aren't really necessarily posting row stuff on the Discord. I mean, right, as far as you know, like on the Roots of War channel, like a lot of people aren't necessarily posting as many, and I wonder if it's just maybe because it's regular row, you know what I mean, and it's not something where, oh, you guys did post. Oh, did I just not scroll up high enough? I don't see anything. Was it from today? All I see is an Echo one. Oh, my bad. Sorry. I see it now. I scrolled too fast. Yeah, the 41,000 and 36,000. Yeah, I see it. Yeah. Yeah. Pepe, what's up, man? Well. No, it should be good today, man. It should be good. This is I'll say this, right? Because again, like I said, I want to allow, you know, a little bit of time for people to obviously get in. What I will say is this is a story that, you know, I've been sitting on for a while, probably for about 3 weeks ish or so, and you know, I was waiting to collect more information, and I was waiting to, you know, like, get some more details, and I wanted an opportunity to kind of reach out to both sides. As most of you know, if you know, if I'm going to cover a story, because for me, I always say this, but I don't have any vested interest in any kingdom, in any alliance, in any particular player, and that's just because I'm not in an alliance, right? I mean, even if I was actively playing for what I would consider to be actively playing, right? It wouldn't matter to me. And I think for me, I'm in somewhat of a unique position because I don't necessarily carry or have really any bias towards anyone because I don't have any allegiance, in a sense. But that also doesn't mean that I'm like not allegiant or that I'm, you know, the opposite of that, which is, you know, I'm just after everyone, so to speak. It doesn't mean that either. But just to kind of hopefully shed some light on general neutrality when it comes to a story that I'm going to cover. Now, what I will say as well because like I said, I do want to allow a little bit of time for anyone else that wants to come in. Now, we're going to kind of break this down into parts. So there's about 5 parts that we have to break this down. And it was like, you got an allegiance to spreadsheets. I mean, that is touche. I'm actually going to be going through a little bit of some, hopefully, leveling up on spreadsheets too as well today and tomorrow. I finally figured that I might as well invest some time and learn a little bit more. So that's something I'll be doing on my spare time. But yeah, so like I said, we're going to break this down into kind of 5 parts. Now, initially, we're gonna do an overview of exactly what are we talking about as it pertains to EIS. We will show some screenshots from EIS. We are going to then look at some matchup comparisons. I will then read out a initial statement summary from the whistleblower, who does not mind, obviously, their name being put out there. So again, we will make that public. And then I'm going to show you a video that in total is probably about 35 seconds long, but because we're going to be doing some starting and stopping, it will probably take a little bit longer than that, because it's going to basically be going through a DM history between the whistleblower and the person in question, which is from EIS. So you'll be able to kind of see that in an unfiltered way. Now, to be fair, we're only going to be showing relevant information, nothing that is not necessarily pertaining to this story. So that's basically our outline for today that we're going to be covering. So it's going to be, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting, right? I mean, obviously, like I said, I'm going to present the information. I will, of course, share some of my opinions, but I'm mainly going to be presenting you the information, and then those of you can kind of make your mind up, or however you may or may not feel about everything once, obviously, it's all said and done. But what I will tell you is that, there has been a level of meticulous research, along with, like I said, also reaching out to both sides, right? That was really important for me. So as I did not want to just cover something from one perspective and not give the other side, or at least all sides and all parties that would be potentially involved, a chance to at least be aware of, and then obviously if they would like to respond. So, cat watching clickbait? Never. I would never do such a thing. That's not necessarily my style, especially on stories that at least I think for me, when I'm covering stories, I enjoy the research aspect. Like, I enjoy the investigative part of it and the digging, just to see if, what someone said turns out to be true or not. For me, that's actually more of the enjoyable part. Nipper says people aren't taking row properly now. This row league is a sink. Yeah. So I'm gonna give it a few more minutes, right? I know we still got some people that are coming in right now. We've only been up for about 9 minutes so far, so I want to at least allow a little bit more time for some more people to come in. And I'll re-go over the outline here in a second as well. Before we start, I'm not going to obviously thread the needle too long here, so we will start shortly. Yeah. PB, what's up, man? Is this about the current KVK? It is not about the current KVK. I can tell you that the KVK that we're going to be focusing on for today's events is going to be the last KVK, or the previous one. So this would be SOS 11, not SOS 12. And those are my numbers because so basically season 11, not season 12. It might be a season beyond that if you're factoring in like the 1+s and the 1++ and the 1+++ as well, right? So maybe it's season 13 or 14, so to speak. But for my records, it's SOS 11. But for those of you that do not go off my records, it'll be us focusing on the latest or the last KVK season, where the G2 pool played in Rise of the Dragon is going to be the stage, if you will, that we are setting. Says it was their main first team against us again, so it was close. Oh, got you. Echo music cover Diplo-WIN lol. Dark, I summon you. Guys, man. Poland. YN Roskin, come here, baby. I mean, listen, that might be an iconic line at this point. Yeah, DSR sounds like clickbait, but I'll entertain it for a bit. Oh, you will be pleasantly surprised. I'm not usually in the clickbait. Yeah, it's not really my style. Mike says, boss, you don't have to make this the entire community knows EIS does Diplo-WIN every KVK unless it gets stuck in a KVK where everyone hates them. I mean, listen, you know, is it, to be fair on both sides, right? Is it fair to say that there are a number of people, a number of top teams that have probably engaged in some form of a Diplo-WIN, you know, at some point, even if it might have only been in one KVK and nothing more than that? I think that's fair to say. Obviously, depending on how many they did, and then obviously how many kingdoms partook in initiating and or just being involved in the Diplo-WIN, right? That's obviously something that we probably have to have a little bit more research on. However, the thing for me is that, because it's not as though Diplo winning is new, right? However, there's a big difference between, I think, people just kind of, you know, broadly and vaguely blurting out that someone is doing a Diplo-WIN versus there actually being some evidence that indicates that they did truly do that. And on top of which, when they've also publicly stated that, you know, they're not really doing that. So, you know, when you can kind of show that people have been saying that it's not happening publicly, and then you're also able to prove it, that they either lied, misled, or, you know, it's just not true what they were saying, and obviously the other side of it is the opposite, that is when I think it starts becoming a little interesting. Right? Because people will say whatever they want, but I mean, you know, can you actually prove what is being said, and or at least show something that could prove, right, what that could be? And so that probably is a little bit of the story for what we'll be going through today. And I'm sure it will be interesting for those of you that are hanging out and are eager to see. Let me see, how long am I in? I'm 13. Okay, I will give it one more minute and then we'll start. That puts us at about 14, 15 minutes in right now. So we'll give it one more minute and then we'll start. Mike says ES has recruited the players that don't like fights and just you guys. Yeah, if you Gavin, if you read this, you are sticky. I know you read it. Yeah, man, I know. Truffles, what's up, man? FOMO gets in the way of quality of life, yeah. ES says Diplo wins and Echo does Diplo losses. Don't evens the community out, Mike. That's good. Yeah, chat. Did Princess quit? You know, I don't know. I don't know if I've seen a video or a stream from Princess lately. So I'm not necessarily sure exactly what's going on there. We all know about it. The EIS WB Rage Diplo-WIN. Yeah, previous was Diplo-WIN 100%. I have screenshots. We all knew about it. Not EIS fault if Echo underperformed. Yeah, sure. Was totally fair. Shut the F up on my screenshot. Oh, you guys are disgusting. All right, let me catch up and I think we're good. Hypno, what's up? Welcome. Almost so BTX Echo Ally wasn't Diplo-WIN, but ESWB was. DSR, this is not news. Well, maybe to some. I think what we're going to be showing off will absolutely be news to some as well. Machines last KVK. Okay, back to football. That's good. All right. Yeah, doing good, Hypno. Evil says it was definitely playing on the screenshots for me. Okay, let's go ahead and start. I appreciate you guys hanging out. As always, make sure you throw us a thumbs up because it helps obviously spread the love and the word. And that is the only entry fee that we kindly ask for anyone hanging out and entertaining us today is just hit that like button. I appreciate you. Okay, so let me first start off, and again, let me just go over the outline real quick, and then we're going to dive right in. So we're going to start off with an overview of what we're talking about. We're going to show some screenshots from an EIS member. We are then going to compare some matchups. We are going to read the statement from the whistleblower, and then we're going to show a video of DM history between the whistleblower and said EIS individual. And again, we are only going to be showing relevant texts and messages from what we're talking about, nothing beyond that, at least based on what is being stated. And if there is something that kind of gets worked in there, right, there might be some text or some language here and there that might be stated, even if it is kind of off topic-ish, right, we're most likely not going to necessarily entertain that. Just some of it is unavoidable based on what we will show off and what we'll see. But we're just going to do the appropriate and professional thing and just focus on, obviously, the point or the topic that we're going to be covering today. So the season in question that we are going to be talking about is going to be and I'm going to switch over now, is going to be SOS 11. So this was, again, last season from the G2 pool that participated in Rise of the Dragon, right? So second to last KVK, not the current one in Age of Duality, but the last one. And initially, it was being thrown around, as it typically is almost every KVK season. So it is kind of funny because it is almost always said at some point by a number of people that there was and was not some Diplo wins that were going on. And typically people will look at the top KVKs at number 1, 2, and 3, and, you know, from top down in priority order, and will analyze and assess, as I had covered a number of the AB groups, all the AB groups pretty in-depthly. And we're going to obviously do a lot more of that as well as we continue moving forward for covering pre-KVKs all the way up through. So that's the kind of the theme, if you will, the stage that we're setting up. Now let's get into and I'll show you kind of the matchup in question, right? So we're focusing on the number 1 KVK here, which is going to be the EIS WB Rage versus NTS Echo 25 IL. And right, these were basically the stats as of 9/5 at the time, right? So you can kind of see Brink of War started on the 6th, so we were able to kind of pull stats up to Brink of War. And then you can see, as far as the matchups here, right, for each team is in the blue, and then the purple is like the differential stats, right, between. And we talked about this. We gave our thoughts and opinion at the time, along with a number of the other AB groups that were going in. Okay, we'll come back to this in a moment. Now, I want to show you guys some screenshots here that are from Dark, who's the R5 in EIS. And then we're gonna lead into that, and then we're gonna come back to the matchups here in a moment, and then we're gonna read through some of the. We're gonna read the whistleblower statement, then we're gonna show you the video here. So this was a screenshot that was pulled where Dark had stated BTX and Echo couldn't Diplo win Ally again because they were both Paragon. Okay, fair enough. Obviously referring to the season where Echo and BTX had teamed up together. And then we get I actually thought that was enlarged. There we go. No, why is it not enlarging? You can do it. You can do it. Do I have to wait for you to finish loading? There we go. And then Dark stating, again, right here, Echo, enjoy the Diplo. Enjoy the Diplo of this KVK, don't cry, and free for all. Okay. I had posted something after I had heard about the matchups. And I had stated, like, I would feel bad if Echo gets Diplo won against, as it could very well. I think I said something like ruin the KVK to an extent. Dark had responded to that saying, hey, what about all the teams Echo Diplo won against? Those poor souls had seasons ruined. Obviously got a couple upvotes here. Okay. This is a little bit of a longer one, right? So I had said, right, don't get me wrong, I'm only referring to this specific situation, give it is. And I think Dark had quoted me saying, well, as you've seen EIS publicly stated here, we're going to 4v2 Echo or free for all. Now, this is interesting. And I say this because this is kind of a sub storyline to what was the number 1 KVK, in that this had to do with kind of the NTS portion here. And what's funny about this is that there's kind of two sides to this, right? Remember, we asked Mark of NTS about this situation, and Mark had replied with that the 4v2 was an option that was presented, but it wasn't something that was like, oh yeah, let's vote on it, right? Let's seriously discuss it, but it was put out there, right? That's what was initially stated in the response I got from Mark of NTS, right? Who was the R5 slash I think is still the R5 there in 49. And then you see Dark's message here at the time. And these are all from kind of around middle September to mid-October. And you'll see, well, okay, so now this is kind of Dark saying like, all right, so maybe there is some credence there to the NTS thing that was said, even though after I put it out, Dark had came out and said that, oh no, that's not the case, right? That was not something that was considered or even put out there. And I think he had stated something to the effect of, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, that he had also spoken to Mark and that's not what happened. So I just want to point out here is that the challenge is that, and this is where I would compare like almost two sides of a coin. On one side, you have Dark, who is a very outgoing, a spokesman for his kingdom, for his alliance. And then on the other side of the coin, you look at someone like Sod from Echo, who is almost kind of introverted, in a sense, at least publicity-wise, doesn't necessarily conversate publicly, and kind of shies away from the limelight. And you can argue that there's pros and cons for this. However, what I will say is, at least on the side of the coin that Dark is on, where you are a little bit more outgoing and public about your business and the fact that you are a representative for your kingdom, for your alliance, and even to a greater extent, anything that you say that does not have some kind of like JK at the end or haha, not real, a bunch of LOLs or something to the effect of where it basically makes it so what you're saying is not truthful or accurate or should not be taken seriously, will most likely and most of the time be taken as fact. And that doesn't mean that that's right or wrong. It's just that you have a position and you have to be aware of your position. And when you say things like this, that basically are, okay, that to me appears to be a statement, and that statement can be taken as fact, that's how people, I would argue, generally and averagely would look at that and say, okay, well, that must be true, right? He didn't say that's not true. He didn't say JK after it, or ha 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 ha, you know, made you all look, you know, nothing to that effect. And so I just want to point out that there are kind of two sides to the way that you go about conducting yourself. And this is one of them. And there can be some good and bad that comes with that. Okay, so we continue down, right? I said, and then Defook says, you're going to do Diplo for top KVKs after reset. And then Dark says here, right, time to pay Echo back for their last Diplo win. Now, this is interesting because there are other screenshots that are kind of him playing both sides of this, where it's, okay, you know, do you take that as fact? And obviously there's also, let me be clear, there's also other posts of Dark saying that, you know, the NTS thing didn't happen, right? Again, to be fair on both sides. And so you have this one where it's like, okay, hey, time to pay Echo back for their last Diplo win, indicating that, okay, you could maybe take that one of two ways. Either they're doing the Diplo win, or he just feels so good about the matchup that, you know, and maybe it is balanced and fair, and he just thinks that they're going to win, right, the season. Okay. Katniss says it's likely happened, but don't feel bad. Clan says Dark thinks people like EIS is hilarious. Rue says FEIS. You guys are so mean. Deleted user, we're the most loved alliance. Okay, fair. Who's going for a Diplo-WIN? Matchup is as balanced as it gets. Now this is interesting, and I want to pause for a moment just to take a look about this. So who's going for a Diplo-WIN? Matchup is as balanced as it gets, right? This is from Dark. If we go and we look at the matchup to look at and say, okay, well, could there have been a better matchup? Could there have been better teams that were formed based on what the matchup was in the end? Now, I'm going to kind of look at two alternate matchups here, and we're going to show you the numbers for those. And we're also going to look at the lowest average true value number if we were to combine the total amount of players that were at 10 million, 15 million, 20, and 25 mil merits, and also the lowest amount number for people that were at 80, 100, 150, 200, 250, and 300 power and above. And what this means is that the lower the number, the more likely it is that when you're comparing a column for one team to the other, the number is closer together, meaning that there's less variance, right? There's less advantages or both sides are closer in that sense. So for the first matchup, and we've already done the numbers, there was a total of 321 people on the merit side for the first matchup. Between 80 and 300, right, you can see 155, right? So that true value number is 155. Now, if we look at a second matchup, right, and again, keep in mind, let me be clear here. When I'm looking at matchups, I am looking at matchups, and I've always stated this across a number of KVK seasons, which is that I don't care about Zone 2. I don't care about Zone 3. Why? Because to me, Final Zone is always going to be the most important. It doesn't mean that Zone 2 and Zone 3, that nobody should fight in those zones ever. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that when you're looking at a matchup, the true comparison for that matchup is when all of those kingdoms are fighting it out. And that, for the most part, can really only happen in the Final Zone. So that's that's how we like to look at it. Now you can look at individual matchups for a Zone 2. You can look at individual matchups starting out in a Zone 3, depending on the KVK map, and then obviously if other kingdoms are able to join in as well, right, from cross Zone 3 passes, etc. But if you look at this matchup, which would have been, as an example, EIS WBA 25AL, and then it would have been NTS, Echo, and Rage. And keep in mind, I don't care about, who likes who and who doesn't like who. That's not the question. The question is, was the matchup the most balanced, and was there no other matchup that could have even been considered, right? And to be objective and fair, you have to kind of take out those things and look at just the raw numbers, at least on paper, to be able to say, well, okay, could there have been something else? So we look at this matchup, and you can already see power's a lot lower. So they're closer in power between each of the two teams. Merits are closer. PvP activity percentage is closer. I believe it's almost 1% down. If we looked at merits, they're separated by 47, which is great. That means that the team versus team has more players that are closer in the amount of merits that they were able to achieve last season. Then you look at the 80 to 300 mil powers, and this number's a little bit higher, right? So it's 179. Okay, so we were able to get significantly lower, almost 300 lower on the merit side, but we went up by about 24 on the power tier threshold side. Okay, fair enough. But could you still argue that this matchup could have been a little bit more balanced on paper? Absolutely. Okay, so there's at least one other matchup so far that could have been considered. Okay, well, is there a second matchup? Okay, so I put together a second matchup for you. Now here's a second matchup. And some people, to be fair, might look at this and say, well, boss, there's obviously a challenge here already. Again, I understand. I am not discrediting the internal political challenges. What I am simply arguing is, could there have been a better matchup or a more balanced matchup on paper as it pertained to meeting everyone in the final zone? Because that's really what you want. You don't want situations where we've seen, how many times has this happened where you get to the final zone and it's just a wash, or it lasts, God, if I can get that off, or it lasts a day, or it lasts less than a day, or maybe it only lasts 2 days, or it lasts a couple days, but one side is consistently being pushed back the moment that they connect flags, and there's no like back and forth, long stalemating in the open field like a lot of people like to watch. And that has obviously happened a number of times. So we look at this matchup, and in this case, right, it could be NTS, WB Rage, EIS Echo, 25AL. Now, this would kind of be like number 1, number 2, number 6 versus number 3, number 4, number 5, as an example, right? And compared to what I think we ended up seeing in this case, which was kind of like Echo taking 1, 5, and 6, which they also took again this season for Age of Duality. And so you look at this and you say, okay, well, how do the numbers look? Well, significantly better. I mean, it's almost night and day. It's almost ridiculous to say, when you look at the data, again, on paper, and to say that there was not any other matchup that could have been balanced. That's where I will call BS on that from Dark. And that's not meant negatively towards him or like, oh my God, what an awful person. It's just that statement specifically is not really accurate, right? And the numbers indicate that. And you could see, right, again, okay, this would have been there. And again, well, we also understand that we're not looking at every single X factor, right? But obviously showing as much as we can. So there is a level of, I guess, softness to some of the things. And so that obviously should be taken into account. And we're always very clear and transparent about that. But you look at merits, a lot lower, a little bit lower than the second matchup, but significantly lower than the first. You look at PvP activity percentage, and it's less than 1%, which is really good. And then you look at the numbers here for merits and for 80 to 100p, and you're at 73 for your true value number for merits, which is about 4.5 times less than the first matchup for the one that they went with that season. And then for the power tier thresholds here, you're at 125, which is 30 lower than the initial matchup, meaning that you're closer now from having more players that are of comparable strength. Again, based on just their power numbers. Okay, so we've now shown that there was at least 2 other matchups, regardless if you find them more or less balanced, I would at least have to argue on paper that these other matchups could have been considered. And it wasn't absolutely the only one in that case. So, all right. Where was I? About to see these poor souls. Yeah, okay, here we go. So then we get, okay, so that's why I said playable for Echo, because it will be fun. Last Sundays are overkill. And then somebody said to switch Rage NTS, that would be balanced, but this is the best second option. We thought about taking NTS for the 4v2, but we decided to go the balance route. And now I'm just thinking to myself here, it's just, now I'm looking at this, right? And it even though Dark was so vehemently, I think I'm probably mispronouncing the word, but we'll just say so strongly, it seems for, right? This is kind of like a double down now on the whole NTS thing. But then, you know, it's interesting because then it feels like, you know, once I had talked about it and once I had covered it, then it was like a 180. And I don't know if anyone else got that feeling. Now, maybe Dark posted at some other point prior to me covering this, when I had initially talked about how Mark stated that the option was presented to 4v2. And here you have now a second post from Dark mentioning NTS on how a 4v2 was at the very least brought up and or put out there. But then after I put the video out, now it's, oh no, that wasn't what happened. And just kind of going into more defense mode. And again, that's just how it looked to me from the outside looking in, because again, I don't know the conversations that went down between Dark and Mark and or anyone else that might have been involved in those NTS conversations, if there even were any, right? But what I see here is a trend. And the trend is that this has now been mentioned twice, right? Okay. Then we look at Dark. This post is, okay, must be why Echo Diplo wins every KVK. They choose the Diplo win. Now, this is interesting And I only say that because, keep in mind, the challenging part here is that, and this isn't like for or against Dark or anyone else that makes these kinds of claims. What I'm saying is that it's hard to discern when you're not able to back up what you're saying. Because at any point, anyone can say anything, and some things will be a little bit more publicly known and more widespread versus things that are probably a little bit more amongst smaller groups. So when you see a comment or a statement like this, and there's nothing to kind of back it up outside of the people that are maybe in those particular KVKs or following them closely and or are in certain chats that maybe not the general public or the average player or member of a kingdom would have access or be privy to, it's kind of hard to like take that any other way outside of who knows. And that's kind of what I mean when, for like, that's what actually, this is like a really good example of when someone says something and there's nothing really backing it up, and how many posts and comments I've seen like this, and for why I wanted to start tracking and historically archiving KVKs. So that way people could see, okay, who faced off against who in what season? You know, what were the dates of that season, right? What map did people pick? What were the stats that were going in there for the team up phases? You know, who powered up the most during Brink of War, right? How did that change the potential matchup going in? Which to me, I'll be fair, I actually would like, and again, I don't think this is a hot take. I really would love to know your guys' thoughts here on this one. I am actually of the opinion that Brink of War should happen before registration. And I say that because, now keep in mind, you can still do things where you take like whoever has the highest score at the end of it, and then you just auto place them into based on who they're getting matched up with. Now, regardless if you have feelings about that or not, and maybe even just the power up phase, I should say, to be more specific, is I feel like the power up phase for Brink of War should happen before the team up phase, right? So if it happens after registration, but before the team up / the matchmaking phase, I am very much in favor of something like that happening. And I only say that because, to me, if you were to look at the amount of power that is gained, because I'm someone who keeps track of this, so I'm looking at this for a healthy number of the past KVKs. And if you see some of the numbers that these players will improve their power by, it can very much, and it does, push the balance to where the gap is then wider. Right? It's not closer, it's wider. And so my point here is, and I'm not saying that happens in everyone, to be fair, I'm just saying that it has happened and it will continue to happen. And so like for me, that's kind of my take on that, is I would almost like to see the power up event for Brink of War happen after registration, but before any matchmaking phase. And then you can still have traditional Brink of War if you want to, right? To kind of determine, or maybe do something else, right? Those are just my, I hate the fact that it happens after the matchups are already set. Excuse me. That it happens after everyone's like locked in, basically. Anyways, kind of getting off on a tangent there. So I don't know if how people feel about that one, but that's my hot take for today. Okay, next one. Dark says, will someone explain why our Diplo didn't win a Zone 2, but we Diplo won? Now, this is interesting because this is actually a little bit deeper and a lot more simplistic than I think, at the same time, than I think some people may give this credit for. So Dark's obviously referring to how the Zone 2s played out within the last KVK, right? Which is what we've been talking about for Rise of the Dragon. This was last season. Now, what he's referring to be very clear here, is that when you're looking at Zone 2s, and arguably at least initial Zone 3 openings, you are, for the most part, looking at 1v1 ISO matchups or isolated matchups. You're not looking at what would be in the final zone, or let's just say it like we should. What you're hoping is a hopeful final zone, right? Of all kingdoms participating and you getting a quality 3v3. So for me, the way I interpret this is him saying like, oh, well, why our Diplo didn't win a Zone 2, but we Diplo won. right? The post is misleading in the sense because what he's really talking about is how did those 1v1 isolated matchups play out? And we all know that you could very much have, there's a higher percentage chance of you having a imbalanced 1v1 matchup for a zone 2, and even more so for a zone 3, compared to what a full 3-on-3 balanced matchup would be in the final zone, right? It's less likely if the matchup is balanced for both teams, or at least both sides will say, that you will have a more balanced matchup in the final zone, again, if the KVK is balanced. But even if the KVK is balanced going into the final zone, or for what could be a final zone matchup, there is a higher percentage chance that your zone 2s and zone 3s could be more imbalanced matchups because it's 1v1s, right? At that point, at least until you get to the zone 3, and then it can, turn into something beyond that. So I just wanted to clarify that. It's not to say that he's wrong. It's just, I think there's a little bit more to give to that is deserving to explain for that post. So Jinxon says, okay, what about as satisfying as EIS lasting under 1 day in our last KVK? Now that it's not a Diplo win, we will blow the RSS we saved from that season. And again, I think that was referring to, right, going into that the last ROTD season. Okay. Dark says, okay, anyway, just wanted to come publicly and state since we lost stature to 25 IL, it must not be a Diplo win. And I feel like this is where you kind of start getting into this. This is like the two sides of the coin thing that I was talking about earlier, right? Where you're getting into this state of, okay, well, you have like one R5 who's just very outgoing. They'll say a lot of things or say anything. And, sometimes it may not always be the best strategy or tactic, right? In that case, versus someone who just like doesn't really say anything as an example, or maybe just someone in the middle who is maybe a little bit more careful, right? In that case with their words. Okay, so then Dark in this one says, okay, so since you agree with the Diplo win, I guess I won't see you in the future crying if we Diplo a strong camp of allies. This is Cartel saying, okay, or that diploma win, don't try to confuse, you do worse with your diploma, lol. And then we have, okay, Obido says, from the moment you are in a KVK, your camp and weak EAS wins only against servers weaker than them. Doesn't anyone only win against servers weaker? Isn't that how the game works? I mean, to be fair, no. You could argue yes and no, but it's not an absolute one or the other, at least in my opinion. The proof is that you have been farming merits since the start of your season. Okay, oh man, people's logic in this Discord. As soon as you are against top alliance, you tremble. Loser mentality, MFT, always against the odds. MFT, okay. All right, MFT. You guys killed me. Well, you won't have to worry about matching the top alliances, so don't worry. Okay, then we get the next one. Okay, my Diplo led, so Dark comes out, says, okay, my Diplo led to the largest final zone in COD history. I don't know. I'll be honest, I'd have to look to see. It could be. It also depends on how he's defining largest as well. Okay, so I'm sorry, what? But I would say thanks to NTS to not doing a 4v2, Echo Diplo led to invade zone 3s and zone 1 locks. Pod, oh wait, no, that's the pod one. People like Dark, so nothing surprises me. Someone said EIS is weak. Let me see this one. COD devs, where is it? Facts, the best day. Oh yeah, the Dark here at the bottom. Shouldn't you take our Bastion then? It's kind of taking all y'all's land right now. Mango says EIS did Diplo win and they almost lost. And then so I got one more here. Now after I show this, after we go over this last screenshot, we're going to transition. So boys and girls, make all your Diplo agreements at the start of the season. Interesting. Based on what we're going to be showing you shortly, that is an interesting post. Okay. So now I'm going to read a statement from the whistleblower, and then we're going to show you a video that goes top down through DMs between Dark and the whistleblower. And I'll just say there's some interesting stuff in there as well. So Dark says, or sorry, we already had this one. So let me show you first off a screenshot here between me and Dark. And before I kind of start showing you all the whistleblower stuff, because that's what we're going to be getting into now. I'm sure that's why most people are hanging out, because it's basically about to start getting good, or I guess better, depending on how you view it. I just wanted to show this, and obviously only the relevant parts here, just to show you some timelines or timestamps for a conversation between me and Dark. So we have, right, me asking on the 26th. All right, we're about, hey, we're streaming right now. Want to reach out, interested in doing a post-match interview on your real match for MFD, or if not live, maybe another one offline. And this was obviously the historic match that I think we could effortlessly say is going to go down in CoD history. And if not already has, where MFD had upset them. And obviously, if you're on the losing side, there's more likely a chance you probably don't want to have any conversations. That's fair enough. But for me, I just view it more as, okay, hey, I'm kind of a reporter, and it's something that obviously is a big story. So to me, it's, if they don't say anything or they don't respond, I'm fine with that. It's not like I care one way or the other, but I always like to ask. And I always try and do so in at least a respectful way where I'm not like, being aggressive about it or whatnot. And then obviously I had asked a question here to Dark on November 14th. This is the one in question. So this was, again, 3 weeks ago, give or take. And I haven't got a message. I took the screenshot from today, maybe a few hours ago. So I have not got a response from Dark after I had asked this question, which was in regards to a screenshot that I was sent from someone, and then eventually I got in contact with the whistleblower. So now let me read you a statement here from said whistleblower. And then once we finish reading this, I will go ahead and show you the video between the DM chat history that illuminates a lot more. And then I think it would be good to have a conversation about it too as well. So the whistleblower states, Dark's self-admitted Diplo-WIN, which he later denied in all possible ways, and trying to clown people who did try to point his Diplo-WIN out. Screenshots I gave you show all of that. It's important to emphasize Dark is knowingly, willingly fooling not just the entire community, lying to them, but also his entire own alliance in the process. Remember how I explained we could all have had a much better, more balanced, more action-packed KVK? EIS themselves were one of the two parties who were hit the most by that, sitting out until the final zone. Dark lying about all of this, saying stuff like that's just how Diplo went. These are lies, fabricated purely for his own people, so he can get away with fighting his own personal fight against it, seems to be Echo leadership. Rumors, Dark would even have done a 4v2, including NTS, which simply weren't rumors at all. He was absolutely working on this. I can show this with absolute irrefutable proof, but I would have to drag my good friend Mark from NTS into this, and I will not do that at this stage. And I will say, this is the thing, I feel like a lot of people respect Mark from NTS, and I mean, I've only had really good conversations with him as well, so, and I think good on NTS, obviously, if it even did play out that way, for them, opting for the 3v3, because I know Mark kind of said something to that effect. Nevertheless, the way how Dark and people like Kolek, Dark's important R4, started to immediately do damage control about this leaking out to the public, Dark and company, them saying dumb BS like, but discussing a 4v2 as a possibility isn't the same as offering a 4v2. Just complete BS. Anyone with some working brain cells can see right through this. Oopsies, hang on, there we go. And then Dark goes out trying to be the hero, exposing scammers. First of all, for such claims, you have to have irrefutable proof. Can't just be going around calling people scammers. And then secondly, before this scammer incident, Dark himself is once again happy to work with an actual known scammer, and does. There are tons of screenshots out there showing people asking Does to pay them their money. That Does owes them. Does even replies to those screenshots acknowledging it by saying you'll get your money soon. Even though this isn't necessarily a part of the topic, the only thing that I will comment on is that I have at least seen one screenshot in Gen Chat of someone messaging Does, and then I've seen another screenshot of that same person that got a reply from Does after posting it in Gen Chat. So that I will just say that on that part. And maybe even the most important fact to take from all of this is that this proves that for this type of R5, EIS Dark, it's not about giving us all, the players of this game, the best possible game experience. Instead, it shows it's just about fighting personal disputes in the shadows behind our backs while lying about it and saying something else in public, as well as pursuing personal goals and personal grudges they hold at all costs for this particular EIS R5 Dark. This type of R5 is not doing Diplo or any sort of planning with in mind for the best quality KVK for all of us. He literally shows us all this by doing what he did in what should have been the greatest, biggest, sickest KVK of all time last season with all the big boy alliances on one map. Instead, the main goals this type of R5 has are personal disputes. They fight behind our backs. The main point I want to make is that all of this is obviously terribly bad for the health of the game. It literally makes players leave the game, which is bad in the short and long run for all enjoyers of this game. So this should be exposed and talked about for what it really is. And I want to be very clear here because I'm going to be showing you guys a video next. And obviously we'll also be naming the whistleblower because they said that it was fine to do so. Is that it's not to say that Dark is the only person who does backdoor deals. There are other people who do backdoor deals. And we stated this in the beginning as well. But there is a difference between people who do that and then people that can be proved for doing that, right? And that obviously for me is such an important element of being able to cover a story is, do you have any proof? Because I will tell you this, I'm always happy to go and look into a story. I'm always happy to go and cover something if I think there's any interest or if it's something I'm even interested in, regardless if it may not have a big public interest, which is why you'll see me cover a number of different things in my videos that I'm excited about, regardless of how many views they get. And, you know, that's just kind of how I go about doing. That's what I like to do, at least at the moment. And so I just want to be fair on both sides here, right? When I speak to the effect of what we're talking about right now. Okay, so let me now show you a video here. And you can see the person in question here is Seta, aka the whistleblower. And I am going to read you, starting here from, this is 8, so this is not August, July, right? January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. Sorry, August is the 8th month. And so I'm going to read you here from about August 18th. Thank you, Poland. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm going to read you here from August 18th for like about the next 30 seconds of the video till I think going into September, like early mid-September. So let me start and just kind of read through some stuff here, right? So Seta had reached out to Dark saying, hey, I might not be available much later on, so just going to drop you a message here for you to see whenever you have time. I'll keep my eye out for your reply as well, but it might take me a while to reply because I will be quite busy the next couple days, just so you know. It's time for me to try something else, something new, something different in this game because I need certain qualities from my leadership in order to enjoy this game and push myself to my limits in this game. Only very, very few alliances are candidates for me, but only 2, 3 if I include NTS. I don't feel good about joining EIS right now, mainly because of some stuff we talked about before. And again, right, we're not showing everything. Also, I already feel bad enough for NTS, and I don't want to make things worse for them. I don't want to be answering questions from NTS players, whether I joined EIS because of Agalaeth or because whatever problems like that which happened. I will be joining Echo for several reasons, but I want to clarify with you something. We have over time discussed and addressed some things, some actions, some behaviors and stuff from Echo or certain members in Echo. I absolutely stand by my words and I do not condone or agree with certain actions that happened and maybe in the future will happen again. Without going into detail, I can tell you that I talked to a bunch and cleared a whole lot of stuff up about such things with CoD before it was decided I joined them. Again, I stand by my words, but my talk with CoD cleared up quite a bunch of stuff for me in a good way. While it doesn't take away some of the bad stuff that happened, I have more perspective now, and also I'm just sure you agree with me that a few rotten apples do not represent an entire alliance or community, or basically just don't spoil the bunch. The same is true for EIS. I just want to explain myself because I don't want to come across as some guy who tells you I agree with you when we discuss some of Echo's shortcomings and wrongdoings, to only later to join them. I trust you, and so I ask you to keep this to yourself, please. Not even NTS yet knows about this. Just Mark and 2 other key NTS figures. I will announce it later on and stuff. And then Santa said, okay, congrats, by the way, with some of your recruits. That's looking great. Really happy for you guys, and I'm rooting for you. See you on the battlefield. And then Dark had replied, it looks like based on when this was sent, about 3 hours later, saying, dang, you're going to Echo. Santa says, I am. And then Dark responds with, I lose a lot of respect for anyone who goes to Echo, but at least you cared enough to message me about it. Okay, rough. It means a lot. Thanks. Just so you know, though, we're going to Diplo-WIN against Echo, give them back some of their medicine. Now, at this moment in time, for the most part, like, there it is, right? You could argue. Now, to give you a timeline perspective, this was on August 18th. Okay? August 18th. That was 12 days before registration started for Rise of the Dragon, which was the last KVK season. Just to give you a timeline and to put that into perspective. Okay, let's continue. So he says, I'll tell you that before you go as a courtesy, and trust you won't show this to Echo. I don't blame you, and I accept any judgments if people want to judge me, feel free. What we discuss stays trusted between us. It always has been. That, and for me, will remain like that. Yes, it will stay here. And you might be wondering, well, okay, why do I have this? You will see in a moment. Echo's going to have a rough season. They know it, I think, which is why they keep spamming us to take the other map. Now, I never saw any messages in relation or any conversation or talk about, a bunch of the top teams taking a different KVK scenario. And that's not to say that I would have, right? Because again, if it's something that's just happening internally between the top teams and they're not kind of letting anything get out or no one's really talking about it in any kind of high volume way, who's really going to know? Oh, so it says, okay, to be honest, I don't know anything yet about what the next season brings in terms of the map. And if we make teams ourselves again beforehand and stuff, haven't focused on any of it yet. It's been tough staying motivated for the game through our absolute dog water trash season we had. It's Shadow Dragon again. They want season 1 map, which is a 2v2. We're going to the 3v3 for Shadow Dragon. Dark says NTS has had a lot of trash seasons. That's why I prefer fighting in the top KVKs. Yeah, same, Sata says. And that's part of why I made my decision now. I gave NTS every chance, all my patience and whatnot. Now I have to prioritize myself for once. You have them a lot of time. Sata says, if people want to tell me that makes me a bad person, so be it, which nobody has or anything, but still. Dark says, nah, you're good people. We'll blame Bro League even though you aren't in it. Okay. Dark says, but in the end, you have fought for many seasons and decided to stay. I know I will be judged for this, not even Mark or leaders, because of course they know me and why I do this. I explain myself. NTS doesn't seem very forgiving. Yes, but I'm not that dumb. I'm not going to let that happen. I won't play the road tournament. Dark says, yeah, I know. I didn't expect you would, but they're going to say it anyways until they realize you aren't. Sata says, not in team 2, 3, or 4, or whatever the F, because I don't want to give people that I just left because row. That's trash to label me like that, but yes, I know it will happen. I'm ready. Dark says, fair enough. Well, best of luck, man. I know you say you don't support that kind of behavior, but Echo does it constantly. So it's the Shadow Dragon map again, you say. So we make teams before we land there. To be honest, I already forgot which is which. Thanks, I won't support any kind of behavior like which we discussed before. You won't see me partake in any way. Dark says, no, we make teams after. Sata says, the bad apples in Echo don't make the rest of the people bad, such as with every single alliance. In my eyes, if you're an Echo, as they do it, and you watch Say Nothing and keep playing there, you support it. So most are bad apples in my eyes. I mean, I think to say at the very least, it's very clear how Dark feels about Echo, but I mean, is that really anything new? Sata says, okay, and likewise, Dark, good luck. Okay, I'm excited for you guys. Thanks, bro. I think it's good you leave NTS. I could tell you weren't completely happy there. I don't want to open up a discussion about it, and I get you and even on your side, but you don't know and won't know if I say nothing when something bad happens. For all you know, I would. Sure, but if everyone is telling leadership about these players to stop and leadership does not stop and players will still stay for seasons, they are supporting it. Of course, it's your first season. All you can do is say something. Say says, you're not wrong, but at the same time, I really don't know what has been discussed between leaders, and I don't really know the real dynamics between certain key figures. I just go off of hearsay and what I can see in like the Discord. I don't want anything to do with the drama, really. I will stay far away from it and just keep to myself, really just looking to enjoy the game, bro. And I think that's kind of an interesting, I don't know if I want to say interesting. I'll say it's kind of a difficult position on either side, because what happens if there is a place or there is a kingdom or an alliance that, you know, might have however many bad apples, and it just so happens to be that maybe one kingdom or one group has more bad apples than another, and you decide that you want to go there, not because of your conversations with the bad apples, but because of your conversations with maybe the good apples. Does that immediately damn you? Does that immediately make it so you are now a part of the bunch that supports it, just because you decided to go there and you don't really know anything about the history there? So we're just going to immediately kind of write you off, or at least put you on that side of the fence, especially if you continue to stay there. It's a tricky situation, I find. So Dark says, yeah, best of luck. I like you. That's why I wanted to warn you. Echo will have a boring season next one. Interesting. Okay. And now we're getting to the 19th. I will tell you, it only ramps up further, depending on obviously the pieces that you enjoy. So this is good luck, Dark. I'm excited for you guys. I'm ready for EIS. Let's go. Okay, so Sato reaches out. Hey, Dark. For the sake of me wanting to know what I get myself into, what do you mean by this? This is say like, okay, well, he said this. I should probably ask a question to see exactly what he means. Okay, we can't pre-make the teams, right? So we'll all be dropped in a map. Let's say EIS and Echo are both on that map. How do you know what will happen next? Unless I'm missing something, I don't think you can, right? Everyone is depending on who we all land with and who is willing to work with who and all that Diplo stuff making teams. Am I missing something? Dark says Echo, EIS, WH, NA will all be in the same KVK +1. Let's just say Echo has it coming to them. Ooh. Seta, you think that, but you can't know that, right? And yes, I know we can be quite accurate beforehand by measuring stats and stuff, but still, Dark says we know that. Now, this is interesting because this is not the first time I have heard, and I want to be clear, I have never seen any screenshots or anything provided to me from conversations with VIP support, from any kind of CoD team members stating that this is what the matchup is going to be before it happens. Now, I have heard of people having these conversations with players in the game and these people saying, okay, well, you know, we do know this because we've had conversations with people on the CoD team, or VIP support has confirmed these, or has said that this could happen as an example, or maybe have confirmed it. I haven't seen anything like that, at least myself. But I do find it interesting because Dark is not the first person I have seen basically state something like this, that they know things before people know things. Satan says, how? Dark says, they have done 2 power and KVKs the last 3 times. They did no team ups. Top, no teams are close to Rage, WES, and Echo to be out in the KVK with any except each other. Okay. Satan says, okay, but where is BTX then? They're gonna put BTX against an alliance 5 billion power lower than them? I don't know. Dark says BTX apparently is dropping to 22 bill. They could be the Mark team, who knows? Or the question mark team, that's what he means. So this is, okay, they lose some players, but it's unlikely they drop that much. Just rumors, I think, but okay, I don't really know. And NA, since when is NA anything? NA isn't a top alliance by far. They said they kicking was BTX words. Yeah, NA will be with Echo. Sata says, yeah, I know, but not down to 22 bill, I don't think. Sata says, but we can't pre-make teams, so I don't get it. NA won't land in KVK. They don't have the power. NA is 27, bro, maybe 28 if they bring in more. Yeah, that's almost 10 bill less than some others if we have to believe the stories. What? The rest of us are 30 bill. Okay. Sata says, yes, Echo and EIS are being estimated to be 36 bill. EIS is not 36 bill. Okay. We 26 before recruiting, 30 after, maybe 31. Sata says, okay, I see I see, yeah, things are just going from rumors to huge blow up BS. None of it seems accurate to me anymore. Pretty sure Echo will also gain power. Really not sure how much. Okay, Dark says probably, but at their point, it's inflated. 500 mil power can only use 200 mil power of troops. So then it's just up to RSS heal amount. Agreed. Anyways, I just wanted to give you fair warning because I like you and I don't want you to be on the other side of a bad KVK. Okay. Then Tita says, okay, I don't know if the whole thing will go like this. I will just sit by and watch it unfold and play my part as just a fighter. But Echo leaders are not just going to sit there and let that happen, right? You of all people know how they work and what they do. Well, if you don't believe me, that's okay. I just wanted to do my part to, I believe this probably was warn you and it was an E instead of a W. Yeah, I prefer to not have that either, which is why I came and asked some more about it today. Echo begging to go to SOS1. They know what's coming. Not has nothing to do with not believing you. Of course, I believe you, but none of us accept it. I just said that I don't think Echo leaders are going to do something to change this plan or idea. You know how they are. I saw Tempe's post in Gen Discord. Yeah, Echo kind of doesn't have a choice in the matter. They that heavily depends on who is on that KVK. First time, it won't go how they want it to. Okay. So this is, and who decides what to do? You have your deal and plan ready. I get that. You and your parties won't care what Echo does or says. I get that. I just don't think we fully predict who will be in the KVK. Mark my words. It'll be different than what you expect. Okay, you think, but I'm telling you, we will all be in the same KVK. They put Echo, SSG, EAS, BTX, REC all in the same KVK last season. Only time it's different is team up phase. Echo, EAS, WB, Rage, NA will all be in the same KVK +1. +1 can maybe change some things. Plus, what about NTS, for example? I don't know exactly what they will recruit, but Dark says A, maybe. So what if we make it 26, 28 billion and are in there? They won't do any sort of Diplo, especially not if it's mentioned like that. 6 will be NTS or 25 IW or someone. And then you want, like, let me guess. And then here we start getting into some stuff. EIS, WB, and NA versus the rest. Dark says, I don't think NTS can beat WB, EIS, or Rage. Game power has scaled quite a lot. NTS just lacking the RSS healing. So definitely not as things stand right now. Agreed. No. So NTS has many crazy RSS healers. That's not a problem. But just the number of Krakens and casual free-to-play players, NTS can't match up with the top right now. So Seta says EIS, WB, and who else then? Dark says Rage. Seta then says, okay, EIS, WB, and Rage? I see. I get it that all those three parties will then have agreed to that, which is why you are telling me all of this. And Dark says, yep. So I would argue that's kind of a second bomb, if you will. So you have a situation where basically Dark is confirming for the other two alliances in those kingdoms that they all agreed beforehand to team up, knowing that they had numbers advantages going in. Also stated that it was the most balanced version of that KVK, which we obviously disproved, or I should say at the very least, showed that there was at least two other options on paper that could have been considered, that would have been just as balanced, if not more. Okay, so Zeta says, okay, but I will, it continues. But I will be honestly surprised if it goes like that. I don't think it can. Well, as I said, all good, bro. Don't feel right letting you go there without saying anything. I really appreciate that. Dark says, Rage and WB had a pre-made agreement and reached out to me. Isn't that bananas? Isn't that bananas? So in this case, if that is true, I will let Dark a bit off the hook here. Not fully, but I will a little bit, if this is true. Because he is stating that they basically said, look, we're going to work together. Let's then go reach out to EIS to see if they're down to work with us. So maybe it's about the same, right? I mean, it depends on how you view it, right? Like, do you view it as Dark assessed the situation and looked at everything and said, well, right, because at this point, Dark probably had inside information on this team of two and probably rightfully assumed, based on probability, that no one else knew that, given that they were reaching out to him first, or may have reached out to him first, right? And you would probably assume so, or at least figure as much. And so he thinks to himself, okay, well, I can either just go into the open market and maybe play some scenarios out, or we can team up with them and then just kind of go down this plan of having this like pre-made team, arguably up to 12 days, we'll say, right, before registration hit. So it is interesting, right? I mean, again, right, we'd have to reach out to Rage and WB to see if that was the case, but I mean, it's pretty nuts. Yeah. Again, there's more to read, and we are going to read it. I just want to say that, and I'm going to try and come back to this topic. This idea of match fixing, which to be fair is very much what this is, right? Like, let's just call it how we see it. You know, obviously with the exceptions of, you know, if Echo and their team or the team that is being match made against is able to just somehow win out their zone threes, because that's really what they would have to do, right? Depending on the KVK map, you'd have to be able to win out your cross zone threes and basically zone lock out the people who did the match fixing in order to, right, have a shot at winning the season in the final zone. I will just say that it sucks to me. And I understand that a part of this is factoring into the design of the map and having preset starting positions versus being able to select your zone ones, which I know we're obviously still waiting for that to be introduced. The fact that you're also having to factor in relationships. You're also having to factor in who's going to get zone 2 fights, who's going to get zone 3 fights, and obviously anything else that comes with that. It is just unfortunate in that case, because one way of looking at it, which I understand is kind of a more long-term investment, and it's not necessarily something that the everyday player is probably going to want to look at it, is that you're going to have probably a healthy amount of people that just don't want to wait that long to fight. I think that's fair to say. And when you factor in when the last KVK season ended for some people, which could have been either a day or two after the final zone opened up to maybe a week, depending on and off, right after the final zone opened, you have weeks of time that you're waiting until the near end of your last KVK. Your last KVK finishing, you then waiting for registration to start, you then having to go through that entire process, waiting for matchmaking, if there's a team up phase or not, waiting for Brink of War to hit, and then you have to wait for the new season to start, and then you also have to wait until the Zone 2 opens, right? I mean, sure, maybe you'll get some statue fighting beforehand, which will open up before the Zone 2s, but you still have to wait a decent amount of time. And so I can understand from that perspective on how, if you are an average player, especially if you're fighting in a top mid KVK, you probably want to get fighting as soon as possible. And the turnaround time is just very long, right? So I at least get it from that perspective. However, I'll just say I wish it wasn't the case. I think most people know how I kind of feel about that. Okay. As we continue. I find it a huge miracle that this hasn't leaked yet, actually, if all those three parties have agreed. That's really impressive if nothing about that leaked to Echo or even the public yet. Okay, I see. Well, if it does, now it's you. I will never leak it. I really value our trust between us, and none of that will come from me. Again, you will understand here in a bit on why it is that I am showing you this. I wouldn't be so sure. Rumors haven't hit their ears. They are begging really hard to go SOS1 for a 2v2. I just have to assume it did, right? But what do I know? Nothing. Okay, I'm gonna give all this some thought and keep my eyes and ears open. Okay, make your own choice, bro. Just didn't want you upset with me after the fact. Now my hands are washed. You can make your choice. I won't be upset with you. Oh, I really do appreciate it, Dark. Thanks. Okay, now we get to why am I showing you this? Here we go. Okay. Okay. Then we get to September 5th. Dark says, see the R5 you joined. Let me know when you have time to talk. This was September 5th. And then we get to October 12th. Right? So again, this is 2 months ago. a little bit less. Seda says, so what I wanted to talk about is that I asked you clearly to keep that conversation between us, but you clearly don't give an F at all, because literally one day later, I had Diablo himself in my DM trying to recruit me and trying to make me feel bad for going to Echo. Also, you just stop replying like that. Naive of me to think we were friends, or at least that there was some mutual respect. There just isn't. What I also don't understand is if this whole scammer thing is about doing the right thing, then why do you work with a known scammer who there are tons of screenshots? Okay, this is just the dust part. It's clearly not about doing the right thing. Bunny is also hailed as some kind of hero while he knew about this so-called scamming, which there was no irrefutable proof about so far, but all right, that aside, while Bunny knew about it for so long, not doing anything about it, that is not what doing the right thing is about, yet you hail as some kind of hero, champion, brave guy. The fact that what Bunny did might be understandable to you does not mean that it's now okay, it's just not. So this is just a fair heads up to you that from now on, I won't give an F anymore either. Cheers. And the message here, this is very small print, but this message that he got from Diablo, which it looks like is on August 19th, if I can read that correctly, says, hey man, if you are ever thinking of migrating, would be great to reunite at EIS. We have a very strong core forming. You can be a part of something special. And then Dark says, well, that's quite the assumption. Lol, Diablo randomly asked me if I tried to recruit players in NTS. I said a couple like Seta and Ploy, and he replied with he was going to message those players, so I said, okay. And what do you mean about doing the right thing? We allied against Echo because they are twats and trash human beings. Had nothing to do with their R5 scamming. Their R5 scamming just proved the trash human beings point. The fact you joined and supported them showed me a lot about your character, which I thought I knew. I'm going to be asked, didn't Dark previously say that he was okay with, or that he appreciated Seta reaching out and saying, oh, hey, thanks for giving me a heads up and letting me know, right? And he even said he always thought he was good people, but now he's kind of flipping the script and saying that showed me a lot about your character. It just feels like we're being a little flippant here, at least on that point. It's odd you chose to send this only after we are clapping Echo in the KVK if this was an issue that bothered you in the preseason. Now, the part here about the Diablo situation, I guess it would depend on each of their interpretations of what was discussed previously, because I don't believe that that was shared or that anything else outside of what we're showing, right? So that's not really something I can necessarily comment on. But again, just wanted to show that because we're just kind of going down the track at this point for you to understand why it is exactly we've arrived at this point. So I'm only going to show a little bit more here, which I think I'm at 616. Yeah, so I think we're going to about up to 630. Yeah, that was what we got approved for. This is weak attempt, not going to work. Dark Diablo told me the truth. Don't try to twist it because your weak attempts are not going to work on me. The right thing, this effing scamming exposing is about doing the right thing, is it not? Dark says, told you the truth what? Lol, I just told you what happened. Not the scamming, just shows how trash of a human Sod is. Is it me or is it just heating up a little bit? It's clear it's not. It's about taking Echo down, but it should be about doing the right thing. That's what you expose wrongdoing for, because that's the right thing to do. Except what you are doing is just not that, and the points I'm making just point that out. You don't need to play dumb with me. Those are your words, and you would expose that because guess what? That's the right thing to do. I can't imagine supporting an R5 clearly stealing from players. Couldn't be me, hence why the amount of recruitment messages I get telling me they can never join Echo increased a lot. I know we've already talked about the whole scamming thing, the whole Echo Sod thing, right? And everyone at this point knows where I stand on that is, and I'll just briefly summarize. There is in no way, any way, shape, or form that enough evidence has been provided to indicate that CoD did what some were accusing him of. But at the very least, you can argue that it could be suspicious. But the problem is that we don't have enough context on the history and the relationship between him and the lights. Now, the timing is obviously of interest, and I feel like you could argue both sides to that. But I just want to state that for the record, because this has been brought up again, that to me, at most, it is suspicious. But it is in no way, shape, or form enough of what you would need to full-blown prove that this is exactly what happened. And there's just nothing else that you could consider could have happened. So I think it's very irresponsible in that sense for anyone to kind of be doubling down or just to, like, heavy committing to that without knowing more. But I do think it's fair to at least say the other part, which is like, okay, yeah, you find it suspicious, maybe even saying like you lean in that direction, but there's not enough at the moment. Now, if more gets exposed and arises later, okay, right, so be it. Satan says, if you know wrongdoing is happening, you expose it because it's the right thing to do. So why do you work with an old scammer? Okay, well, I didn't even expose it, lol, the lights did. Oh, Common Dark, really, bro? I just pointed out how trash of a human your R5 is. Now, is it just me, or is Dark like really on this point of just like, you know what it is? I wonder, like, if we like went all the way back, when was like the very first time that Dark ever said anything negative about Echo? That to me, like the origin story of the Echo EIS rivalry, that to me would be absolutely interesting to do a deep dive on and find out. Because I almost wonder if CoD, or if CoD is like living rent free in his head about Dark, you know, just. And I say that because how often, no, understandably so, right? This is a DM, right? Maybe and we should, again, cover that fairly to be fair, right? If we looked at some DMs between CoD and someone else, right? Maybe CoD is equally hating on Dark and EIS, right? Wouldn't that be hilarious though? From someone who just doesn't chat that much or publicly talk that much, that would be wild. Yeah. But like, wouldn't that be interesting though, to like find that origin out? Like, when was the very first moment that Dark ever said something bad about EIS? And then did CoD ever publicly say something? Like, when was the first time, if CoD did ever publicly say something bad about Dark or EIS? And then what was it for exactly? Like, what happened, right? Like, that would be interesting. Because at this point, all it is just, I hate you, you suck, you guys are trash. And then, you know, you don't ever hear anything from CoD, you know? So it's kind of like, you know, not unrequited love. I guess it would be requited or just like one directional at that point. Okay, so we continue. Those are your words. While you speak those words, you work. Okay. Well, if CoD wasn't a trash human, I would work with him too. It's just like, dude, the tripling down is just, it is starting to get funny to me. You think I would have allied Echo before any of that happened? It's because your motives is not all about doing what's right, doing the right thing. The answer is no. Where am I at? 17? Okay. It's all about your obsession to take down Echo. He showed in many other examples how trash a human he was. That's just happened to be the worst one. Although sharing a girl's news because she left her alliance is closed. Damn! Oh my God, what is happening? What is this? We're gonna stay far away from that. If you know something, please do not say anything, because I do not care. Do what you must, but it is disgusting that you're sitting there playing the hero and embracing this funny guy as some kind of brave hero guy, exposing this. And nothing to do with me or his conversation. And what's also extremely telling right now is that you don't even attempt to explain to me why you just broke and shat on my trust. You know, it's interesting because part of me feels like we're having two different conversations here. It's like the conversations they just having, and then Dark's like in his own world, having his own conversation, his own line of thought. It is just funny to kind of read and dissect a bit. There says, well, you're defending CoD and asking about it, so it kind of does have to do with that convo. I told you that in trust. I asked you to keep it to yourself, and one day later, Diablo is on my doorstep. How did I break your trust? Great human being you are, man. Thanks. It was nothing but respect and honest to you always. Now, no more. And part of me almost wonders if maybe I guess it depends. Or like maybe Seta had interpreted it as like, don't say anything about you reaching out to me, my name, and then Dark did. And maybe that's where some of that miscommunication was, possibly. Okay. Dark says, well, you're an Echo. Can't act like you know what a good human is. Just like, and again, maybe it's just me, man. But and maybe it's just because of the direction the conversation is at right now. So maybe it's just more of, you know, like Dark doesn't want to entertain what Seta's saying, so he's just going to kind of stay on in his own lane. And Seta's in his own lane, so it's like they're mostly in their lane, but then there's like some like brief intersection changes, right? That's happening. Yes, it's interesting. Okay, so how's the drama over there with the lack of activity? Damn, it's just like shots are being fired left and right. Losing EIS in a 1v1 and WB in a 1v1 isn't a good look. Yeah, I know you're going to throw mud because right now there's nothing else you can do. It shows that you very well know you are wrong. Just like one of your most important R4 said to me, he did have the respect and dignity to talk to me about all this. And he told me I make many good points and I'm right. You're making false claims. So what is there to reply to? Well, guess what? I don't care about whatever mud you want to throw. I really don't. Go right ahead. You've made up your mind, so stick with that. You know what's interesting is like each of them are posting in a way where the other doesn't really need to say anything, right? Like as an example, when you say something like, well, guess what? I don't care about whatever mud you want to throw. I really don't. Go right ahead. Like you would imagine like there's not necessarily a question there, right? It's almost like they're making end statements, but then each of them are deciding to continuously reply to each other. Like they're stuck in some kind of like addictive loop. Is it just me? Are we kind of getting that vibe here? I guess maybe that happens when you're like really in it. Like it's almost like, I don't know if the right way to say this is though you want to have you want to be the one to have the last word kind of a thing. And I don't know if it's exactly that or something similar. Maybe that's just the impression I'm getting. Okay. Okay, I have only been honest and upfront and respectful to you, always. 0 false claims here, and our entire conversation shows that. I only did the same to you. Do you need me to make our entire DMs public? Like warning you about joining Echo? You think I care? I came to you about joining Echo, not the other way around. I don't say anything I don't mind others hearing. Okay, we will see then. No problem for me. I'm not hiding tickets in a closet like so. I mean, yeah, it's funny. It is funny. That has nothing to do with me and you whatsoever. I see why your whole team removed you from R5. And meanwhile, you work, okay. And we're going back to the scammer thing. So was I. Yeah, this one is going to age well, isn't it? Yeah, we Diplo-WIN against Echo. Easy. Easy, he says. Easy. Easy. Oh my God, and then it gets deeper. It's gonna happen next season and the season after. Dude, what is this, a Diplo-WIN Palooza? Is that what is, man. Oh God, okay, so basically what Dark is saying here is we need to pay very close attention to the next time that, or I guess any future time at this point, yeah, it's like, is that what's gonna happen now? Is every season now it's gonna be Echo, it's gonna be EIS pre-arranging and match fixing before the KVK starts anytime, or maybe what the plan is from Dark is let's just match make every single season, and then that way, regardless if we get Echo or not, at least we're set up for if we do get Echo. Is that what that means? I don't know. Interesting. Okay, so Satan says, why do I see you deflecting everywhere lately? Than that, you don't Diplo-WIN right now. Hashtag global allies. Hey, that's funny. Because that's the other thing you were just lying about and not being upfront and honest about. Dark says, I was going to Diplo-WIN against Echo, just try not to be super balanced KVK. I mean, it really wasn't. It really wasn't as balanced as it could have been, but okay. Said you were too obsessed with taking Echo down, and for you, everything justifies that means, including working with an own. Okay, here we go again with the scammer thing. Now, the thing I'm very curious about, in my opinion, is has anyone? I think this is a fair question to ask. Has anyone? Has any R5 ever wanted to see the downfall of the #1 alliance / kingdom as much as Dark has about Echo? I mean, I would almost argue that Dark's one of his full-time jobs is just play. It's like he's Pinky in the Brain, right? And it's just like planning the demise of Echo and Kingdom 60. Yeah. Oh, look, Tiny joined. What's up, Tiny? I mean, aren't Sod and Tebby quitting after the season? Oh, really? I haven't heard anything. That would be interesting. Okay, what else? Was hoping 25 mil was BTX. At least we all thought it would be. The hypocrisy is crazy there, Dark, and you know it very well. No, what you was hoping for was 4v2 including NTS that you exposed as well. And now he says proven false, but nice try. And then if you're going to expose my DMs, you're going to kind of ruin your 4v2 propaganda. Okay. I mean, I feel like we've kind of shown both sides of it at this point. I don't need to try anything. In case you forgot, I'm extremely close friends with Mark. I know exactly what happened and what was said, but all right. Considering I never mentioned a 2v4, but a 3v3, your threats are completely meaningless to me. You'll see good luck and have fun. You act like people don't call us Diplo winners every day. I mean, to be fair, a lot of people Diplo winners every KVK season. Echo is a falling power. They're dead in the water. You act like you aren't spending several days trying to deflect very hard, that your entire plan was way before this KVK even started to pre-Diplo and a Diplo-WIN. Like, brother, it says it right here. This is you talking, remember? Okay, then he says, I told everyone WWin Rage talked in advance and wouldn't work with Echo. There was no deflecting it. What is this? Just mentioned it wasn't a Diplo-WIN, which it isn't. Or this, will someone explain why our Diplo... Oh yeah, we showed that one. Turns out Echo's just bad. Or maybe this one, you could at least just own up to disrespecting the trust I asked from you and Arcava when I asked you to keep that between us. But no, you act like I don't know what I said, lol. You want to throw mud? Okay, we are going to throw mud. I told you the convo I had with Diablo. Diablo also told me how you told him that I'm joining Echo. So I don't know what the F you were trying to say. Man, it makes zero sense. Hello? You know, the thing I asked, I exactly asked you to keep between us. Just say sorry and whatever the F, right? All this isn't necessary. It's childish and a waste of effing time. But no, you want to throw mud immediately, so we will do that then. I don't recall ever telling Diablo you were joining Echo. So you're calling Diablo a liar now too? All right, fine. No, if he said I did, then I probably did, as I don't recall saying anything to Diablo. Wait, what? Wait, that's a crazy statement. I mean, listen, you either know what you said or you don't know what you said. But to say, no, if he said I did it, then I probably did, as I don't recall. I mean, he could have easily just typed in that person's name to double check real quick. But now it's like you leave it open-ended. Oh boy, oh boy. It's just like, you didn't have to say that, right? Like, he could have went up to start conversation, typed in Diablo's name, read through the chat. It probably wasn't that long and just figured that out. Okay. So within 24 hours after telling you he knocks on my door, I told nobody else, Dark, effing nobody. Even just that alone, aside from what Diablo told me, is enough. You want to tell me the leprechauns told Diablo? That's bad. Okay, leprechauns. And now this is extremely low-level conversation. Trash. I've seen enough. I feel like you aren't reading what I'm saying. Let's move on and stop wasting time. Okay, we're almost done now. Sounds good to me. Anyway, I left my temper of how you were talking to me get the best of me. Sorry for turning up the heat with comments on your old alliance. Have a good day. Yeah, too late for that now. I see right through this totally insincere apology. You even have the audacity to not even make that a real apology because you just look at you. You make it my fault that I'm talking to you this way. You are quite something, aren't you? I thought you were my friend, mother effer. You don't have to accept it. I thought I could trust you, and I trusted you deeply with that. I said it because I thought that's it. I actually respect that trust, and look at you now. It's my fault that I talk angrily to you. Get out of here, man. I mean, I don't recall ever sharing that. That's not my problem, is it? Your memory has entire holes in it. That's your problem, not my fault. We could tell if you ever told me clearly. Okay, I guess so. All right. Dear Lord, that is pretty much everything I have that we are covering today in this. I'm going to read through chat in case anyone has any questions or just some general thoughts on what has transpired. And again, like I said, that's the story. Those are the screenshots. That's the video. People can make up their own minds for how they view it. And I want to be, again, fair, as I've stated previously, in that it's not as though Dark is the only person and or EIS is the only team that has ever done a Diplo-WIN or has ever match fixed. A number of other kingdoms have done it. Now, it's not like there's some publicly wide available list, but again, if you know, you know, right? So I just want to be fair, right, on both sides. But like I was saying in the beginning, and I'll reiterate that now, the big difference here is that people can say whatever they want about someone who did Diplo-WIN or didn't Diplo-WIN, but there's a big difference between saying it and then actually being able to prove it. So again, to me, that looks like proof to me. Right? We're not just sharing a single screenshot. We have a video of the DM conversation and what was said. We also have historical referencing from chats that Dark made. Yeah. And again, maybe you don't care. Maybe you do care. Maybe you care too much. Maybe you care too little. Whatever side you fall on, so be it. I just thought the story was interesting to cover because there was like two sides kind of being shared. And when I found out that some information was shared with me, I wanted to try and dig a little bit. And also to reiterate once again, right? Remember, we did reach out to Dark, but there was no response from him. And I'll show that, right? Going back to November 14th. So it's been about 3 weeks. Never got a response, but again, I gave him the same professional courtesy I give everyone for any story that I'm going to cover and for something that I'm going to talk about. And I wanted to make sure that I at least gave him an opportunity to share if there was anything he wanted to share or illuminate on. And if it's something where it's like, and I almost wonder if it's like to a point where, yeah, it's just, I do. I really wonder if it is like, are we going to start getting to a point where people just don't care and we're just like completely open about our like we're just completely open about Diplo winning or match fixing or or anything like that? Like is that like the trajectory that we're going down, where eventually it's going to get to that point where R5s and teams will just openly admit like, oh yeah, we agree. Like, so what are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? Like, is that like, dear God, I hope that's not, I hope it's not. I really do. Because to me, that is an absolutely scary future. But I guess that's where you'd have to hope the COD team comes in and maybe balances teams out. Right? That would obviously be kind of the one workaround for that. And then at the same time, you'd have to hope that they're not being, I don't want to say infiltrated, but that they're not being motivated or threatened by spenders or people, like if they don't get a certain team up, right? Like what if that happens? Like, man, that would be wild, right? You'd hope not. But, you know, you see stuff like this and you think to yourself, like, man, this just kind of sucks, you know, when you hear about stuff like this. Because keep in mind, right, EIS last season and this season, I believe, were the number one team, right? They were the number one kingdom off power. So, you know, you see this happen with the number one team does this. Like, what does that say to everyone else? What kind of example does that set? And maybe some people care about that. Maybe some people don't care about that. To me, I like to fall a little bit more on the side that I care about it. That's why I think, at least until proven otherwise, I have an immense amount of respect, and I think a lot of people do, for NTS and Mark, because at least for the amount of time I have known Mark, and which hasn't been incredibly long, but for, I should say, the shortest to brief amount of time I've known him, and from things that he has said publicly, you know, they don't care about, you know, being overpowered or too underpowered. Like, they're always looking to have, and I'm sure there's a number of other teams out there as well, right? This is just one I'm referring to, that they care about trying to have balanced matchups. And I think that's very respectable. Absolutely, I do. And again, right, whether or not it's something that, like, you know, you don't care how good-hearted or evil or ill-intended or, you know, whatever emotion you may feel or characteristic you would like to define for any kingdom or so, I will just say that, to me, at least in that specific KVK, it is disappointing to see that that's how that played out. Yeah. Basically, this is what you have to consider. 3 of the top 5, just to put this into perspective, 3 of the top 5 kingdoms last KVK conspired to match fix. And that's what happened. All right. Now, it wasn't, and again, it wasn't like it was an overwhelming power differential, but there was a clear advantage. And it also wasn't the most balanced KVK on paper, right? And we showed that as well. So, yeah, it just, yeah. I mean, it does. It sucks. And I also understand, and I'll be fair on this end as well. Sometimes you may not. Sometimes you might only have a bad choice versus another bad choice. And that could very well happen. And we have seen that happen. But I don't necessarily believe that that was the case for this particular KVK season in the number 1 KVK. Even though, yes, right, you could say it has happened before. Okay, I gotta read some chat. Paulus is sad to see. Cat says, you're just late to the party, BN, but A. Oh, really? Possibly. Yeah, again, I don't know if everything that I've shown has been shown in any kind of organized public way. I don't think anyone has seen any of the DM history between Seta and Dark, so I'd like to believe that is new. But at least that I know of. Yeah. Tiny says, wasn't me, it was B anyway. Who was I calling you? Never. Would never say that to Cat. Yeah. Poland says, Seta's delusional, to be honest, thinking Dark can be someone's friend. I'm sure he can. I just don't necessarily know about that relationship that had played out there. Because, I mean, that's... it's pretty nutter butters. Llama, what's up, man? What's the juice? We just finished showing off the juice. So actually, it's not that bad, man. We did that in about an hour and a half. No. Crazy doctor says Dork's heavy on the drugs again. You guys, man. Almost says yikes, I sounded. Wait, what happened? Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, because Kat says, yeah, it's Sata's DN. She's an Echo member. Hence why he has notification from Echo's Discord on the screen. Yeah. Yeah. And I want to point out, like, it was really important that if I was going to show something, and obviously Sato was completely fine with this, and being named, he actually insisted. You know, I one of the things I had asked, I said, hey, listen, if you could like do a video of just like slow scrolling for me, so it could be something that I could show and it wouldn't just be, you know, kind of individual screenshots at that point. I said that would be great. He was more than fine doing that. And I also understand it's not always going to be the case, right? For any, and if not every story that we come out with and we cover. But I'd like to believe that lends a little bit more accuracy, right, to what we're showing and what we're providing. So, and like I said, man, it's up to you guys on, you know, however you feel in the end. And if you were just more interested in wanting to kind of see the story and see what it was going to be about, you know, and you don't really have any vested interest either side, like myself, then I hope you at least enjoyed hearing a little bit. Yeah. Mobile says, why latest? Creel, what's up? Welcome. Oh, news. Yeah, Tiny, I might be interested in hearing more about that other thing too, as well, that you said about the Sod Tempe thing. Paul says, don't worry, Darks ain't spending. He can't pressure them. Tiny says, really? After your stream, let me show you something, baby girl. Dude, always. Man, listen, I will say this, man. Tiny, you remind me of, kind of like Unk News, where like you just know a lot of what's kind of going on, right? Like internally within the scene, kind of like behind closed. At least I feel like it. Like there's a few people that are very kind enough to share stuff with me. And some things they will tell me like, boss, I'm going to share this with you, but like, don't say anything. Or sometimes people will share stuff with me and they're like, hey, listen, you know, just don't say that you got it from me, kind of a thing. Right. And I'll look into it and I'll just say, listen, I got this from an anonymous source, or I had a couple people anonymously that told me. Right. And then there's some people that are like, yeah, dude, I don't care. You can say my name. Like, you know, if you find this interesting, feel free to put it out. I always appreciate when anyone is obviously willing to share something that they think is interesting, or think that I might be interested in it, whether it's, you know, for something the community might like to see, or even if it's just something that they know that I just like to talk about and I like to cover, even if it may not always be the biggest story line that's out there. So, I mean, to me, this is just news, if you will. I like I said, I really would have liked to cover this, you know, basically at the end of last season, but there was just a lot going on that didn't necessarily allow for me to do so, at least up until now. So, albeit late, you know, as always, I hope some of it was entertaining. Tiny says, after your stream, we can have a chat, but I want to show you something with videos. Okay. Oh, listen, man, I'm always down, man. Yeah. Get done says, huffing that copium. Yeah, Simos, what's up? Jay, yeah, we know he's biased and not actually objective. Thank you for clarifying. Oh, man. Jay says, you've been covering ES and Echo drama for how long, yet you say you don't know how it started is crazy to me. Well, to be fair, there's like a question and a statement in there. So keep in mind, at least as it pertains to any drama, I mean, maybe I've done a handful of videos. I mean, I don't know if it's more than 5, maybe a few. If I had to guess, I'd have to go and look real quick. But I think what I was referring to back then was talking more about the origin of it, because typically when any kind of beef or rivalry is just starting out, usually it's not something like, unless the alliances themselves are already big and are already widely and universally recognized within the community, you're probably not going to think too much of it in most cases, at least for maybe the average onlooker. So what I'm more curious on is, like, when was the very first time either side said anything about either side? And obviously the earliest that could have happened would have been when Echo formed post Kingdom 23 split from TFS, where they then went to 60. So you'd have to kind of look at it from that date, which we did cover back when they split, but we'd have to look at it from there. That's what I'm talking more about, is like, you know, who fired the first shot kind of a thing. And then what exactly was the shot fired? Why was it fired, right? Was it because of a Diplo win? Was it because of something else? Did someone call someone's mama fat? Like what was it? Right, that's interesting to me. Paul says Dark Age short hunt tellers. Yeah. Jay says, isn't Sata the person who got a PowerPoint made against him for pretty bad stuff? Oh, I don't know. Davis says, pre-made ally rank 2, 3, and 4 in the game can't ever be justified, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, I feel two ways about that, Davos. So on one end, if all the kingdoms in the KVK are very fairly balanced, then it doesn't really matter for the most part, right? You could do 2, 3, 4, 1, 5, and 6, or you could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? As long as all the kingdoms are really close in power, if they're close in other stats and metrics, for the most part, right? And the differentials between the two teams are very low. And anyone could look at that and say, yeah, that's pretty balanced. I don't think it matters. However, that is not usually the case. So the other side of that is, yes, I would agree generally, because that usually is not the case, where you'd look at the situation and say, yeah, you're allying 2, 3, 4 versus 1, 5, 6. Yeah, like it feels rough. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Data says, no one cares what you think, BN, you're a troll. Damn, bro, I look trollish to you? I mean, I feel like I've been working on my figure. So that's just rude. Yeah. Damn, I gotta go back for some of these. Davis says, any player in top alliances who enjoys merit trading and farming all season doesn't deserve to be in top KVKs. You know, I almost wonder if there is a way to track that. Like, can you track? I don't even know if you can, but I'd be curious. Like, can you track that stuff? On I guess you could. You'd have to track it from the start of the KVK until statue opens. And then you'd have to track it after like once the fighting in statue finishes up until the next statue. And you'd have to keep doing that up until before Zone 2 opens. And then you'd have to do it again once the Zone 2 fighting. So yeah, I guess you could, but you'd have to like, I guess technically you probably could figure that out. You would just have to get scans at specific times when there's low to like very low to absolutely no field fighting or rallies that are happening. And then you could probably figure that out. So I just scrolled back down. Tiny does that. Okay, you say we do that for, yeah. And I could do that. I would just have to ask, I'd have to ask Fuzzy, like basically I'd have to say like, look, I'd like to try doing this test for this next KVK to see how much like merit farming was happening. This is like how it's going to look. And I can give you some dates in advance for pools, but you know, and keep in mind, if there's a point where I could eventually get daily pools, which I know he's still working on, him and Ezio said like that's something that's obviously, you know, down the road for me to be able to kind of get like have an automated thing set up for me for the sheet that I get, which is different than the sheet that other people get. Then yeah, that would obviously be great because I could do that. But yeah, but that's cool that you guys do that, Tiny. Yeah. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. Yeah, because man, wouldn't that be interesting if we could do that across the KVK season, and then we covered and said, here's the kingdoms in ranked order on who merit traded and farmed the most. Yeah. Yeah. From, I think it's January, right? Yeah, 9 to 12. Ransom says, if we catch someone merit trading during a period we are collecting merit, we dock the merit for that period by 80%. What do you mean? Explain that to me. Oh, as in for like end of season rewards or for rewards later? That like that you'll keep on a sheet. So like I see. You'll dock it on the sheet for the merit that they've gained for what like their total merits are for the end of the season or something to that effect. Is that what you mean? I think I'm somewhat getting picking up what you're putting down. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay. I mean, to be fair, I mean, if that's how you guys run things and you're transparent and you're public about it, I think that's fine. Right? The biggest thing for me is the biggest thing for me, and I've always said this, I've always been very clear about this, is however you're going to run things is how a kingdom is how you're going to run stuff, but at least be transparent about it. Like always be upfront about it, be very clear and concise for the members, so that way they have realistic expectations going forward on what their experience is going to be like. And so nothing, should ever kind of be catching someone off guard in that sense. And so, yeah, man, I think that's a good idea to be able to cover and do something in that way where you're doing it so that way it's not only fair for how you're viewing what that player's doing, but more importantly, it's fair for all the other players that are in your kingdom and are also not merit farming or merit trading as much, and they're accumulating the majority of their merits, if not up to all their merits, fighting. So Tiny said, yeah, of course that's how 167 operates. No, we prefer to not tell our members shit and then just slam them with random stuff when bored. It's more fun. I'm sure. Yeah, man. I mean, having an absolute diabolical Russian roulette approach to your kingdom seems like it would instill a fantastic level of enjoyment, trust, and confidence. Sure, why not? Kills me. Yeah. We'll see. Hell yeah, I'm glad you get it. Yeah. I mean, yeah. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that continues to go. Yeah. Poland says WB Rage weak leadership coming up with these deals. I mean, I guess part of me almost wonders why. I guess were WBA and Rage just like on really good terms? Not necessarily that I would know, but I wonder if it was something like that. Was it just, we had good relations? But I have to go back and look at KVK history to see if they had teamed up with each other at any other point or had gone against each other, or if any of their leadership had said anything publicly in CoD Discord to say like, oh yeah, had a really good experience with them or whatnot. Anything, kind of generally positive that could have indicated, maybe why that happened. unless it was more of like, you're the best, you're like the best alternate option. You know, like you're the best sub that I could think to work with, because maybe they just had certain feelings about the others that didn't make them reach out to anyone initially, kind of, you know, behind closed doors. Yeah, Jay says, I think more than 50% of the people in that KVK enjoyed the outcome, not gonna lie. I mean, listen, I think despite how the KVK played out in the end, a lot of people fought, right? I think you can say that. Now that is not the same as saying that it was the most balanced that it could have been, and it's absolutely not saying that it is the absolute most amount of fighting that they could have got out of the KVK. But we can at least say that the matchup wasn't super OP on one side or the other, and there was indeed a lot of fighting that played out. That is fair to say. And on top of that, Echo has kind of been on like this underdog thing where, you know, for the past number of seasons, or not the past number, but a few seasons, they haven't minded being the underdog, or, you know, taking what some might say is an unfavorable matchup, right? Just in lieu of making sure they get the most amount of PvP they can get. So, yeah. 2-Bit, what's up? Yeah. Davos said, you guys spent the entire KVK farming Darklings because of your Diplo-WIN. Final Zone was decided in one day. Any EIS player who enjoyed that Diplo-WIN is a joke. Yeah. And again, I'm not saying the Final Zone lasted an incredibly long amount of time. And I guess I'd have to compare. I don't know if I did pull end of KVK mirrors. Oh, no. I can get those because I have it pooled. So we could compare what the end of last KVK season's top KVK group's total merit accumulation was versus 2 seasons ago, maybe 3 seasons ago. I'm trying to think. I think I did it back then as well. So we can actually see, like, was there more or less potential fighting from one season to another? Yeah. We can absolutely take a good look at that. Yeah. Mikkel, what's up, man? How come Tiny is always on being live videos? He pings me directly. He needs to come support him because he is lonely without me. That is one storyline. BN, are you a good sub? I don't know. I'd have to get my certification. My certification first. Mikhail says I call it up. 2-Bit says, yes, it has nothing to do with many staying up for days on end playing an FZ to help gain advantage. It's all about Diplo-WIN. No, I think that's fair. You know, I mean, and I think from what 2-Bit's saying, again, it's never to diminish any of the efforts that the individual players are making as a collective unit. For me, I like to look at those numbers when it comes to, you know, once the KVK is finished, what are kind of the end performances like? The challenge is that it takes a bit of extra work to filter out the merit trading and the farming that's happening. So, and the fact is that because there's arguably a lot of it that happens, those numbers get inflated, right? i.e. meaning they're higher than they are, / you're not able to get the most accurate gauge on the amount of merits. And I'm saying in an easy way for what the true performances were and or are by the, you know, in a KVK season near the end, right? Once the fighting has subsided in the FC. Well, slash anywhere else on the map, I guess, as well. Yeah. Mr. Git Done says, what is this Wish version? What is this Wish version of Yapcast? Wait, I don't get that. What does Wish version mean? Is that like a PG rated version? Yeah, 2-Bit says, why spend so much time on something from last season that doesn't even matter? Oh, well, I mean, it matters to some people. And it's interesting to me. You know, I mean, I've covered a lot of storylines from a lot of different alliances. If it's something I think is interesting, if it's something I think some people from the community might enjoy, or heck, even if it's just something that I'm really passionate about, I'm always happy to cover, if I'm able to. Excuse me, of course. Yeah. DSR says, Bian only knows what he was told. I was there, don't be so dense. It's a hypothesis of no bias is involved. I know they won't work, and Bian knows. Everyone knows. Song of Deca, what's up? Oh, look, more drama. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think Poland, you probably hit that on the head. Responded to DSR saying, yeah, what is this? Oh, what did DSR say? Yeah, DSR says, no, he doesn't. LOL, ES and Echo would never work together. And WB said they will ally with Rage no matter what. So just like I said, those matchups were not possible. And of course, Starwind comes in with a classic FEIS. Paul says, at DSR, you're dense. Bian said he knows that there are problems. They are just matchups that are more fair if everyone could ally. Yeah. Again, yeah, we did state that it's obviously, it would be very difficult and challenging to kind of put away everyone's emotions slash biases slash anything basically that would impose any kind of direction towards who's going to team with who and matchups. I mean, to be fair, that it's probably the hardest thing I would argue that happens in a KVK season. And it's probably at the same time, the absolutely most important element is diplomacy, because it very much will dictate how much PvP is going to happen, how much fun is going to happen, how much fighting is going to happen, and whether or not you're going to have a balanced KVK or an imbalanced KVK, or you're going to consider playing that season or not, if you're going to consider spending, and how much will you spend. It's actually wild how KVK diplomacy has such a profound impact on not only the health of the game, but the spending health of the game, and can affect the business's bottom line so much more than maybe I even think the devs probably realize. And because you have an element of the game that is so vastly impactful on how a season is going to play out, but at the same time, it feels as though the COD team has kind of given so little care to it, it just makes you wonder. You know, like, is there a disconnect? Is it, you know, and we're not talking about, you know, you hitting T5 in your first season, or spending initially. We're talking about maintenance spending, right? Sustained spending. And that's really what you're talking about at least at the kind of Season of Strife stage and timeline. Yeah, it's such an interesting topic. Yeah. Yeah. Mobile, what's up? You said, have you considered making a tier list of young kingdoms or something? So that's actually something I'm working on. Mobile. I am. I have all the stats. I have all the data. So there's actually kind of two things that I'm going to work on. One is I want to be able to maybe show the top 100 kingdoms at a certain point, where, and it would probably be after I do the top 25 kingdoms, but I would probably do something like showing off the top 100 or maybe the top 200 or 250, and then showing which kingdoms gained the most positions and like are moving their way up the board, and then potentially which ones are working their way down, right? So kind of showing like plus minus gains on kingdom positions, on kingdom power or strength positions, and then showing like which ones, are moving up the ladder the most, which ones have moved down, something like that. I've considered doing, where we maybe look at that like every like after every KVK finishes, so like after a migration phase. But the part about the new kingdoms, yes. So that's something that I've done it once, I think once or twice before. But basically what I would do is I would look at all the kingdoms that are going to be entering SOS. So it would be any kingdom from Season 1 up until Season 3 pre-war. Because once you get to Season 3 pre-war, you're basically going into SOS. So I would look at kingdoms that are between there. And then I would look and kind of show like, well, hey, here's like a bunch of strong players. Because here's like a bunch of strong players that are coming into Season of Strife. Here's a bunch of strong kingdoms that are coming into Season of Strife. Maybe these are some to look out for. And then also in the same breath, the other side of looking at that is, this is like fresh meat to the grinder, right? For some kingdoms, they might also look at these new kingdoms coming in and say like, man, there could be some recruiting potential there. So there's kind of a couple ways of looking at it. But yeah, it is something that I have on my radar and I have on my list of having an interest to do more of. Yeah. Miguel says, BN, you need a tiny interview. You know how many views you will get if you do that? I mean, maybe at one point. Mobile says, I feel like a lot of new kingdoms miss the YouTube content is mostly is focused on Strife. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it takes a little bit more time and just additional effort to cover younger kingdoms. And most of the time, and I just think it's to be fair, you have generally more interest for Season of Strife just because they're stronger kingdoms, right? And that's where you're getting a lot of play, and there's already a lot of interest and intrigue at that level. Which isn't to take anything away from the younger ones, of course. Yeah. Ray says, can our Alliance LXV send you a link to a YouTube video of our promotion statue fight? Will that can be a 700 channel? You're more than welcome to send me anything. I'm happy to take a look. Again, I can't guarantee I'm going to cover everything, but what I can at least say is, I'll take a look. So you're more than welcome to send it to me. Miguel says, what is this baby mama drama from the past? Soft, what's up, Ian? Do you have states of previous greatest height event rankings? I don't. I mean, I have some, but nothing recent. I would reach out to Killam. Just Killam does a great job tracking greatest heights, and he puts out YouTube videos covering them as well. I would find him. Ray says, by the way, I sent you KVK map. I drew. You did? Oh, you're right. You did. I did take a look at this. I'm going to be honest. I felt like there was a lot going on. Mm. Mm. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it looks interesting based on what you're showing. I think probably the most impactful part about it is that you're getting early fights in zone 2 and it's not taking as long to open that up. Like I almost wonder if they did a poll and they asked people in the community, "Hey, would you rather have statue open first or zone 2 open first?" Part of me feels like people would rather have zone 2 open first instead of statue. But it would be curious, I think, to ask. So. No, absolutely, Ray. No, dude. So it's so funny you say that because I was actually thinking of doing that. Is do a community video where I say like, look, I want everyone to show me I want everyone to draw and submit to me your KVK map designs. Like I'll give everyone a week. And I've been thinking about doing a video on this, right? Because I did one for me. Right? Like I shared one map design I have that I think would just be absolutely great, at least for that version of that KVK map. But yeah, you're onto something because I have this written down on my timeline to show, or sorry, not to show, but to do a video on this where I say like, look, man, like let's design the best KVK map, right? And I want people just to submit to me their designs and, you know, like basically just draw it to me and then try and be as detailed as you can in explaining how it works. And then I can maybe like pick the ones that I think like are really interesting, and then we can like showcase that at least in the video. But then maybe I can like also link to like everyone's ideas just so like no one gets left out. I bet you that's something that the COD team would probably watch and be interested in. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Mikkel says also being, why is this map so bad? You mean the Age of Duality map? Yeah, I mean, if so, yeah, I don't think it is. I don't think it's everyone's friend right now. We probably could say that. The other one, yeah. Yeah, man, wow. Well, all right, fam. We are coming up now on almost 2.5 hours. I am going to go ahead and close some things out. I will say that we are planning on streaming once the, I think, final zone opens. So I'm going to be trying to do a lot of that for Age of Duality because to me, I think the final zone is by far to me, I think it's going to be the best part to stream just because, again, all the kingdoms are going to be able to participate for Age Duality. So the plan is going to be to do that. So we're either going to be streaming tomorrow At reset are probably Tuesday. I think I have to double check exactly when the passes are going to open, but I'll probably just do a ping on the Discord for when that opens up. So thank you guys so much for hanging out, tuning in, being interested in this story that we covered today. And right, regardless of what side you fall on or not, hopefully you at least were able to get something extra out of the day that maybe you weren't expecting. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. And of course, our coverage of it, I will go ahead and leave y'all to it. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. It means a lot. And we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.